Our Inheritance, a Safe Haven Orphanage Mystery by Patricia, Asedegbega. Series Finale. Hi, Benji. Benji was the head mechanic and manager of the biggest of the 3 garages Tom Osunde owned. He could handle 8 cars at the same time, whilst the one Uche worked in could only do a maximum of 4. He loved visiting. It felt like the dream workplace for any mechanic who loved his job. They often chatted a bit about the running of their respective places. Benji had worked for their boss for over 20 years, and Uche liked listening and learning from him. Uche had just observed Benji settle an issue with a very unhappy customer and his bill. Uche had watched the big burly man listen patiently and then tell the customer that either he paid what he owed or his car would remain in the shop. There had been some shouting and words used that Uche would not be repeating to anyone before the man stormed out on foot. Uche, how are things? Both men shook hands. I heard about what happened with Osarobo. I was honestly not at all surprised, Benji said. How did you hear about it? Uche asked, shocked at how news traveled. Oh, nothing is a secret. We all know what happens in every garage. Someone sent a message to someone that sent it to someone else. Benji laughed as he explained, and Uche shook his head. He really had no time for gossip, as he spent all his time trying to juggle his duties as a manager so as not to disappoint the man that had given him such a tremendous opportunity at such a young age. Well, that is why I'm here. Osarobo says that he is innocent. Yes, I know, but he says on this occasion he is. And strange as it might seem, I'm beginning to question whether or not he was framed. Anyway, you worked with Albert for a few years. What kind of person is he? Did you notice anything strange in the time you worked together? Uche, that you should even be questioning his innocence is most surprising. Is this not the same Osarobo that you caught selling a tire at a lower price to a customer if he paid him in cash and kept it between them? The same Osarobo who spent a month working for me and in that short time found out where Joyce, my secretary, kept the key to the cash register and helped himself to some money? Good thing that there are cameras here, so he could not deny it when we all saw him get the key and take the money out. I should point out that until that moment, he had accused Joyce of having taken it herself, not caring that he was putting her job at risk. It was only after Mr. Osunde saw the video that he took him off me and sent him to the other shop. You have no idea the relief we all felt, Benji said. I know that he has done a lot of stuff. I worked with him in the other garage, and he came out with me to this one, and yes, everyone is right. He has been guilty every single other time. But if he isn't this time, then someone else has sticky fingers, and that does concern me. And also, yes, not having him around has created a better work ambience, and people are more relaxed. But I do feel sorry for him. I don't think he has the best home situation, Uche explained. And neither do you. Listen, Uche, I tell my kids all the time about you. When they think I have a money tree planted in my backyard that solves all their needs, or when they come home with a bad grade and give it little importance, I tell them how you and your brothers live, how you have not allowed your circumstances to define you. Come on, you are the youngest manager of us 3, and you got it because of how hard you work. I know his family has issues, but he just goes around like the world owes him, and he needs to grow up. I mean, the home you come from is one thing, but he is just a dishonest person. How does one explain that? However, you are right to look into the people working under you. Ultimately, you are responsible for what happens in your shop, and will share the blame or take most of it. Regarding Albert, I did not have issues with him. He's a hard-working person, and when the new shop opened, I would have preferred someone else to have left instead of him. But I really was not given a choice. I know money is tight. He asked for a few salary advances, but that was all, really. It never created an issue. He was always willing to work extra hours to earn something more. Daniel, I know of because I have a friend in the garage he used to work at, and when Mr. Osunde wanted to hire him, he asked me to inquire about him. He is a good mechanic, but a bit of a rogue. Does not mince words, and if he does not like someone, he lets the person know. From what my sources tell me, He was not too happy when a 23-year-old boy was given the managerial position. Neither was Osarobo. They both have made that very clear on numerous occasions. Yes, they did, even to my face. Osarobo is a difficult person and did make the experience of working with him quite frustrating. But he just reminds me of one of my brothers. My brother has a hard time sometimes accepting that his mother could not keep him and starts acting out or getting into trouble in school or picking up fights with other kids in the neighborhood. We understand exactly how he feels, but have processed it in different ways. So we try to remind him that he's surrounded by people that do want him. But it isn't easy. We got lucky. We have a mother that would give her life for us. Not everyone can say that, even living in a family. So, a part of me does sympathize with Osarobo, because I feel everyone sort of gives up on him. Have your sources told you anything about anyone else? Uche looked at the burly man hopefully. When you put it like that, I heard money has gone missing before, about a year ago. Dorcas, your secretary, lost some money. Daniel told one of my guys. And I don't know if this bit of information is relevant or not, but she was engaged to a cousin of a friend who has put her in a difficult position. I did not get the particulars as I turned off when this friend was telling me what happened. But it seems this guy put up her name as a guarantee for a few purchases and then he disappeared. She had people calling her and even going to her home demanding that she pays them. And this cousin of my friend had gone AWOL. She has called and called him, gone to his house, his parents' house, looked for him all over town, contacted family and friends, and nothing. You should know that this happened right about the time the money went missing. Do I still think it was Osarobo? Yes, I do, because he has a terrible record. I mean, a terrible record. The kind that is very difficult to ignore. Uche nodded, and they talked a bit more before he left. He had a lot on his mind, but he was not going to follow anyone home to investigate if they were living the lives they were claiming they had. He was no detective. He had only found himself in an unfortunate situation, and he was finding it difficult to get out. If he was going to solve the mystery, it would have to be with the information he already had. There was one person he had to speak to again, though he really didn't want to. You took your sweet time. I called and called you. Osarobo complained before he even sat down on the bench located on the veranda of the house. Why could we not have met up in a bar or something? The visitor continued with his line of questioning, evidently not happy with any aspect of the arrangements. Because, Osarobo, I don't have money. Can you understand that? I can't spend money on beer when the children in this house don't drink milk more than once a week. Uche was beginning to feel irritated and with a growing desire to show him the door. He had asked that they not be disturbed, but something told him that most of the members of his family had positioned themselves very near the window closest to them, especially as his brothers had included all the household in the guessing game of discovering the culprit. Uche came home every evening to new theories from one sibling or the other, and they did not even have half the information that he had. Fine, but at least you can serve me something here, right? It is customary when you have a visitor to offer them some light refreshment. Osarobo, I can offer you water, not cold, because as you must have observed, we do not have electricity at the moment. Uche replied, to which Osarobo opened his mouth, uttered an exclamation, and shook his head in disapproval. Uche counted to 10. Anyway, let's get to the point of why I asked you to come. It seems you have been calling all the workers, not just me, and you were heard threatening Albert. What do you have on him? Uche asked him. Well, I had to, of course. My uncle has to take me back if everyone agrees, saying how he said I was a nuisance to everyone. If you all speak up for me, he'll see how necessary I am for the smooth running of his business. Osarobo declared with a firm conviction as Uche listened with incredulity, biting his lips so as not to burst out laughing. The situation was particularly comical because his visitor had said the last bit with a very serious face, like he really believed what he was saying. Uche made a gesture with his hand, urging him to continue. So, anyway, I'm reminding all of them that they also have secrets, because they've made me out to be this terrible person that they find unbearable to work with. But they aren't all as squeaky clean as they appear to be. You know, they are not perfect. But they makes an extra salary getting money out of customers. I have watched him and confronted him, of course, which is where I get some of my spending money from. Contrary to what people believe, I don't steal money from the office for my beers or give all my salary to the canteen. I also have a family that I need to help out, just like you. Uche decided not to waste his time explaining that helping take care of 13 brothers was nothing compared to doing so for 2, as he knew Osarobo had, but he let it pass. That and the fact that you have left the server at the canteen with a huge debt. She has gotten into trouble with her boss. You should do something about the situation. She might lose her job, you know, Uche advised. I meant to pay, and then I lost my job in the most unjust manner. Where am I to get the money from now? She'll just have to deal with the consequences, just like I am doing. Every man or woman for him or herself, was the unremorseful reply he got. I see. Osarobo, do something about that. It is no longer a suggestion. Otherwise, I will not help you anymore. If you don't have money, go and speak to her boss. Own up and see what payment plan you can come up with that will make her not sack an employee that you and your group of friends bullied into allowing you guys to drink, eat, and live without paying. Have I made myself clear? Osarobo looked up at him, his mouth ready to say something, before thinking twice and nodding. And whilst we are being realistic about our different situations, Osarobo, look around you. This is all my mother, my 13 brothers and I have, this house. You don't want to know our daily struggles, and I have no desire to share them, but you need to sit up. You have a privileged position. You have made so many mistakes, and up until last week, you got more and more opportunities. It is difficult to work with you. You are stubborn, opinionated without even being right, lazy, dishonest. Hey! Osarobo cut him off. I did not come here to be insulted. I am the victim here. Stop and think for a second. Would you tolerate having an employee like you? Be honest. What would you do with someone who lied constantly, wasted time, frequently kept the change, and to top it all, did not do his work? Osarobo was silent for a moment that, from the way it dragged, Uche knew that he was not willing to give a reply. I understand that you have a difficult situation at home. What I am trying to tell you is that everyone has problems, and that your younger siblings are just soaking in everything every adult in your family does, including you. Can't you be a good example? Or try, at least try. Look, instead of sulking and getting upset with me, accept the situation for what it is, and let us try to find a solution. It is evident that you don't like being a mechanic. I see the little love you put into every single task you do, and that you don't have a clue either. Is there anything you think you would enjoy doing? Uche asked, trying to find a way for him to be able to earn a living somewhere else in case he couldn't be proven innocent. My mother forced me to train as a mechanic. She has this idea that I'll inherit the place, but I hated every second of it. I paid someone off to write the exams and I got help with the practical exams. I did my training in my uncle's workshop and was able to get him to sign off so I'd get my certificate. I hate the work. I just don't understand what I'm being asked to do most of the time. He replied quietly. So, what would you like to do instead? Osarobo, you are a young man. You can't end up spending your life in a job you are neither skilled for nor like. His visitor shook his shoulders as Uche waited for an answer, which he mumbled, and so had to ask for him to repeat. I don't know how to do anything. I have been told what to do all my life, and I don't know what I want anymore. For the first time since he had known him, Uche saw a flash of vulnerability. It felt like he was at least accepting that things were not in a good place for him, and so he decided to take a leap of faith and include him in on something he had been thinking on for a while. How about driving? Do you like that? Uche asked. I can do that! The low light from the kerosene lamp allowed Uche see the smile on his face, but he also felt the relief in Osarobo's voice at finding something he could actually do. I might be able to hook you up with a job as a driver in an upcoming project, but I need to know that I will be counting on an Osarobo willing to give it his best, one ready to make a profit. Really? I'm your man. You will make profits, I promise you. Osarobo replied, all excited. This will not be immediate, as I have to sort things out first. So if your uncle takes you back and you work in the garage, I don't want a single complaint from anyone until I get the driving job together. And leave the drinking aside, as I need to be sure that you will be sober when driving. Do we have a deal? There was another silence as the man weighed if it was worth his while being on his best behavior for an indefinite period of time. Yes, you are a man of your word, so I'll keep my end of the bargain. But you have to clear my name to get me back. Uche, I really did not steal the money. Fine. Now tell me what you know about Albert. Well, it happened about a month ago. A customer brought in a car. I have no idea what problem it had, as you had me on washing duties as usual. But I heard an exclamation and went over to him. Albert's hands were on his head as he studied the open bonnet of the car. I knew at once that he had done something wrong, just by the guilty look on his face. He saw me and pointed to a tube he had nicked, and he asked what could he do. He did not have any money to replace it, but you know I am quick on my feet. I asked him if we had the part in the shop, and he said yes. He told me what it was, and I got it for him, agreeing not to tell anyone about it. Why would you do that? No, don't even bother to answer. Is that how you guys solve issues? How come Dorcas did not report that something was missing from the shop? Uche asked. So now he had to personally count every single item they had for sale as well? That's one. Does she notice anything that isn't her phone? Lately, all she does is spend her day on her mobile, talking either in whispers or shouting and meeting people outside and giving them things in bags and receiving money in return. Maybe she herself is trading goods from the shop. You will be surprised that of all your workers, I am the most honest. Osarobo laughed as he said that last part, and Uche remained in shock at all he had been missing. Maybe Daniel was right. Maybe he was too young for so much responsibility. The other man got up. I'll leave now. Uche, don't forget all you promised. I will be waiting for your call. Please, clear my name as soon as possible. I can't stay home much longer. My mother has me cooking, cleaning, and sweeping while she goes off to her shop. Uche almost laughed at the image that had conjured up. At least the woman was trying to get some use out of her son. I'll do my best, and Osarobo, you'd best sort out the problems you created at the bar. If you don't, my offer will be taken off the table. Osarobo replied that he would, and then opened the metal gate to show himself out as Uche buried his head in his hands. What was he to do about all he was finding out? Uche arrived earlier than usual at the garage, and he inspected the 3 cars that had stayed overnight. He had not been able to sleep much, and it had not been because of the heat. The power had come back on about 2 a.m., but he had not been able to enjoy the air the rotating blades of the ancient standing fan provided. Every time he closed his eyes, a name or a phrase would pop up in his mind. Dorcas would not be in for at least half an hour. He decided to take a closer look at her workspace. It was her territory. He had never had a reason to venture in, but seeing all that the workers were up to, he needed to find out more because he could not afford to lose his position in less than a year. He rummaged through the drawers and the neatly written account books. He straightened his legs under the table, but there was something in the way stopping him. Looking down, he saw that there were a few white bags stacked in a corner under the table. Uche reached out for them and took a look inside. Half an hour later, he heard sounds in the outer office. Getting up, he went in the direction of the noise. Dorcas was opening the windows. Good morning, Dorcas. Please hand me the records you keep of our spare parts that have been sold directly, as well as what all the mechanics have checked out to use for customer cars for the last 6 months. Uche asked, collecting the order forms from the printer. Dorcas looked at him in astonishment at his unexpected request, and then she handed him a blue-colored notebook. At that moment, her phone rang, and she looked at him. Go on, pick it up. You probably will be needing the white bags for that, right? He looked at her, and her chocolate-colored face went pale as she held onto the chair, as if suddenly needing support. Uche, I can explain. He held out his hand to stop her and went into the shop, unsure of what he would find. He had to get his house in order before somehow all the blame managed to fall on him. About an hour later, he stopped before Dorcas's desk. She stared at him, the fear in her yes. Uche, I can explain. See, lately... He caught her short by putting a list before her. Dorcas, these parts are missing from the shop. They were received, and no one signed for them, nor are they documented in the sales inventory. Can you explain what happened? You can see the total cost. It is way more than your monthly salary. This was under your responsibility. There was a silence as the woman rummaged through the notebook, the invoices and his list, suddenly rushing out of the room. Uche knew in which direction she was heading. It didn't matter how long she spent in the store, she would arrive at his same conclusion. But he was beginning to have an idea of what was going on and who was behind it all. Sadly, before the day was over, someone would be fired. Whilst he had looked through the book, he had noticed something and then remembered something else. Uche picked up the phone and called his boss. Tom Osunde was the one that needed to make decisions. He was not willing to sweep anything under the carpet. Things had gone too far. He also sent Osarabo a message and asked him to be at the shop that evening. A few hours later, Bode, Albert, Daniel and Dorcas were in his office when Tom Osunde came in and they all greeted him.
Good evening, sir.
Soon, all eyes were on Uche, who was hoping Osarabo would for once in his life not be late. Uche, I'm all ears. Why are we here? Their boss asked as he sat down behind the large desk. There was a knock at the door, and they all looked in surprise when Osarabo, followed by his mother, walked in. If he had not been so tense, he would have laughed at the sheer shock on his boss's face. Joy! What are you doing here? Did I not warn you to stay well away from my place of work? Oh, you thought I was joking? The man spluttered angrily. Calm down, Tom. I am here to support my son. It seems the truth is about to be revealed, and I decided to make it easy for you. So you don't need to find me to make your formal apology for all the false accusations that were made here during our last unfortunate visit. I do hope that you will be decent enough to pay the salary you owe him for the days he was unable to work, through no fault of his own. Joy explained as they all looked amused at the scene. The vein on Tom Osunde's forehead was visibly pulsating. Uche decided to intervene before the man decided to give his sister a piece of his mind. Sir, I have been looking into things after what happened the last time, and there are some issues that have to be brought to your attention. Dorcas, hand him the list of missing goods. The woman looked at him before slowly getting up and handing their boss the list that she had typed out with the total cost that made their boss's eyes bulge out in shock. I could not investigate further as I had to attend to a few customers, but that is what we have lost in 6 months. Joy! And you are standing there, asking me for money. See what your son has stolen from me? He waved the paper under his sister's nose and she grabbed it from him and read it. I told you this boy did not call you here for anything good. See how I needed to be here? Now he's covering up his incompetence by blaming you. Tom, you made a mistake hiring him. See all the money he made you lose. The woman shook her head and clapped her hands dramatically. Uche decided to intervene before the siblings got into another fight. No, sir. It wasn't Osarabo. At least, not on a number of occasions. Especially because the last order I placed came in 2 days ago, and already 2 tires are missing. Osarabo has done a lot of questionable things, and for them, You have every right to fire him, but on this occasion, it wasn't him. For the first time you are saying something that makes sense. Of all these people here, who framed my son? Joy eyed the room maliciously. All eyes were on Uche. The same person that has been trading with our goods. The person that had extra money the day the money went missing. On that day, I know of 2 people that were seen with money. Bode and Albert. Uche declared as an exclamation was heard, and Albert protested. Me? I don't steal. I have never taken money from anyone without their permission. Neither have I. Uche, you have been listening to Osarobo so much that you believe his lies. Bode defended himself too. Is it a lie that I got you that part from the store when you got into trouble with that customer's car? Then you were very grateful. Now you act all honest and trustworthy. Osarobo said. Can you see yourself? You've just implicated yourself in theft. Fine. Prove that you stole and handed it over to me. Go on, prove it. Albert challenged him. Uche, I don't understand why you summoned us all. We know what happened. Osarobo here, even though he does not look it, is the brains behind the operation. Daniel said, looking at his boss's nephew, and for a split second, it felt like he was considering owning up, just so as to claim being the brains behind anything. Uncle, I am the one with the reputation, but they are all thieves. Dorcas spends her time exchanging white bags for money with strangers that come here. Ask your able secretary what she is selling. Uncle, of all your workers, you are staring at the most honest of them. Uche had to marvel at the way the boy had managed to make himself the victim after the lines and lines of complaints that could be written about him. He decided to redirect the conversation again. What is way more serious is this, which would not have been discovered had Osarobo not been fired. Sir, I know I should have done the stock myself from time to time. I just did not find the time for it and thought all was in order. But being in charge, I take responsibility. Uche said. We'll talk about that later. Who was it? Osarobo? Bode? Albert? Daniel? Dorcas? Uche, I hope you called me here with the solution, not just to play a guessing game. Tom Osunde bellowed. Yes, sir. Albert, the day the money went missing, you told someone that your son needed money for school, but you were skint. Bode had also needed a loan that evening. Bode, who, by the way, regaled with you a completely different story than he did me, got some money off you. Where did you get the money from? Uche asked. I didn't steal it. Daniel gave it to me. They all turned to the man in question. So it is a crime now to help the son of a colleague? What baffles me is that this meeting was called with the purpose of establishing Osarobo's innocence. Are we not better off without him? Daniel asked, looking at everyone. But he isn't the only thief here. About a year ago, the same thing happened here, and Osarobo was not an employee of this garage. I believe no one else knew about it. Just Dorcas and Mr. Osunde, and yet you told someone in another garage, and it got to me. How did you find out, Daniel? Uche asked. Circumstantial evidence. You still have not made a serious case against me. Daniel replied smugly. Sir, take a look at this book. Every mechanic has to ask for a part. Speak to the customer about the cost and sign off for it. Daniel has asked me for specific parts. I can think of 4 occasions, but there is no record of his using them on the customer's cars, and those parts are missing from the inventory Dorcas and I did today. Tom Osunde flipped through the pages of the notebook. Or maybe I'm too good of a mechanic and I fix the problems without needing to replace anything. Or the customers changed their minds and Dorcas here has been trafficking with stolen goods. Daniel accused as the secretary got up with an exclamation, but Uche continued speaking. You did not want Osarobo here, or me to be honest, so you got rid of him. You were seen in the office the day the 10,000 naira went missing. You gave the same amount to Albert, who gave it to Bode. You expected to get us out of this place and become the manager, but every operation leaves a trace, and I don't remember the details of all the customers, but I was able to come up with 3 names. If we ask them and examine their cars, will we find one with new brake pads, another with a new tire, and a third with a brand new battery? Will they maybe confess that they gave you some money to fix their problem at a lower price? Daniel opened his mouth, not expecting the sudden turn of events. He was about to say something when Osarobo's mother clapped her hands and stood up. Brother, call the police. This matter must be sorted at the station. This person has caused my family so much stress and my son has lost his job because of him. Call the police, let them lock him up. On hearing those words, Daniel raised both hands. Wait, it hasn't gotten to that stage yet. We can sort it out. Boss, I'll pay for the losses. So, uncle, when can I resume work? I will need a week for vacation. You have no idea how this has affected my nerves. For a second, the room went still as all eyes were on Osarobo, who had gotten up, expecting an apology and a round of applause from the way he was looking at everyone. I'm so sorry, Uche. I know it is against the rules, and I promise that I have only done it on this occasion. I was desperate. You have no idea what it's like for people to even find out where your parents live and demand they get paid. I had to do something, and this was all I could offer. I had been buying things for almost a year, preparing for my wedding, household items, jewelry, materials to make our clothes, and I had been selling them, making the exchanges here. I did not want a stranger to have my address. I am sorry. Mr. Osunde made it clear that we would get fired if we ever used his premises for our personal gain. I did not know what to do or who to turn to. Dorcas wiped a tear from her eyes, her head down. Have you gotten all the money you need? Uche asked, and Dorcas shook her head, not bothering to wipe the tears that were fast coming. Dorcas, you have been very distracted lately, and that was how Daniel was able to get away with so much. I need to know that on the days when I have too much work, I can count on you to be on top of the office. You can. Ask anyone that has worked with me before. I am a very meticulous worker. This will never happen again. Uche nodded at her. Look, you can continue selling what is left here, if you want me to look into getting you an advance on your salary. He looked at her, not knowing what else to offer. No, really, I only have a few things more to sell. I promise that my work will not suffer. I'm really sorry for the spot I put you in. I'll explain to Mr. Osunde. I can't believe I was so sloppy. I'm so upset. She looked away. I'll let it go this time. Send Bode in, please. Dorcas nodded and smiled in relief as she mouthed a thank you. Bode walked in and set his lanky body on the seat that the secretary had just vacated, observing Uche as he chewed on a toothpick. Ah, Uche! I still can't believe what happened. How did he do that without us noticing anything? My mother always says that the quiet ones are always the worst, and she is so right. Bode shook his head and sighed. Why do I have a feeling that you knew what was going on? I can't prove it, and you will never admit it. But Bode, I will be watching you very closely. Just one step out of place and your job will be on the line. Uche, how can you doubt my honesty? Do you ever see Daniel and I do anything together? No, I am an honest citizen. I live out of these hands and my hard work. Uche sighed. It was no use telling Bode that he was just a few steps above Osarobo on the ladder of honesty, but there was something there was no way he was going to look away from. But that is simply not true. We both know that you tell people stories, your colleagues and even customers, to get money out of them. Let me explain something to you very clearly. You are not to accept money privately from customers, not with any sad story that is evidently not true. No, don't bother arguing. One more story to a customer and you will be introducing yourself to every garage owner in Lagos. Are we clear? Bode was looking at him very surprised. He had not been expecting the angle Uche had come up with. Give this to Albert. Tell him that he should come up with a payment plan and come back to me, latest by tomorrow. He handed him a sealed envelope and the young man walked out, still in a daze. Uche closed his eyes and sighed. He still had the hardest part to do. Convince Mr. Osunde to take Osarobo back. His boss had told him that the responsibility of the garage swimming or sinking was on him, and that he never wanted to find things in such disarray again. Something told him that the only condition that Osarobo would be rehired was if he came back to work in the garage he was currently managing, and only if Uche made himself personally responsible for whatever havoc he created. Was he willing to undertake such a responsibility and sacrifice? At what cost? Thank you for listening to another Safe Haven mystery. The inhabitants of the orphanage will be back soon. To stay up to date with Patricia Asedegbega's work, make sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel by clicking on the subscribe button and hit the bell for notifications.